people always ask me, Rudo, is the Avs prospect pyramid made by aliens? And I tell them, of course not. It's made by Joe Sakic. Unless, I mean, all the great trades, the signings, the draft picks, it all makes sense. Joe Sakic is an alien.
Here's McKinnon. Score!
First off, some ground rules just to lay down here. For this video, to qualify as a prospect, you must be 23 or younger and have played less than 10 NHL games. That specifically excludes Logan O'Connor and Dennis Gilbert. I'm counting them as graduated. The general idea of a prospect pyramid, if you're not aware, is to put a ranking on prospects without putting a specific number to most of them. Because, let's be honest, a lot of prospect ranking is projecting players, and the difference between the guy you rank 5th and the guy you rank 12th might not actually be that much. They may fall into the same sort of category, so that's where the tiers come in. You can put players in the same relative grouping together instead of nitpicking player position 5, player position 6, whatever. This year I went with 7 different tiers. We'll get into why in a little bit. Normally I go with 6, but this year I think it's worth doing 7. On that note, let's jump right in here. For the first year since I started doing this, there's actually a little bit of a conversation about who should be at the top in tier 1 of the Avs pyramid. You have both Bowen Byram and Alex Newhook that there's a good argument for. But ultimately, I went with the defenseman in Bowen Byram. Not just because of pedigree, yes, he was drafted 4th overall, but because when you look at the player he could become at the NHL level, he's the type of Duncan Keith, Ryan Suter type that could be a guy that plays 30 minutes a night for the Avs in all situations and is just a monster for them. Has a bunch of offensive upside as well. We'll see exactly how much of that translates to the next level. I expect a lot. Very good skater, very confident with the puck, but we'll see how the Avs decide to use him. Either way, this is the type of player that teams win championships with when they're on an ELC. And that brings us to our second tier, which really is tier 1.5, because Alex Newhook stands out from the rest of the Avs prospects a significant amount. I know the pyramid is supposed to be less of a one-to-one ranking, but for Byram and Newhook, I think they're pretty definitively 1 and 2. Newhook's offensive upside is borderline elite, if not elite, based on his first year in college, and the guy is just electric. He is easily penciled in as the Avs 2C of the future behind McKinnon, and again, an entry-level contract type of player that helps you win championships on the cheap. Both of these players are extremely straightforward. They have the highest ceilings of anyone in the Avs prospects pool, and in Byram's case, you may see him in this upcoming season, certainly the year after, and honestly, I believe the same is probably true of Newhook. So already, the Avs pyramid looks very, very strong. They have 2 premium prospects. Newhook, as the second of these, would probably be the best prospect in a decent amount of NHL team systems. But let's get into the proper tier 2 as well now, which includes 5 more players. Shane Bowers, Martin Kaut, Connor Timmins, Justin Barron, Justus Andersson. For me, this is the tier that is key. The Avs should get NHL players out of all of these guys, at least in some capacity. For guys like Kaut and Timmins, they've already played a couple of NHL games, but I suspect they will play a significant amount more over the next couple of years as well. You'll see most of these guys have pedigree. 3 first-round picks, a pick at the top of the second round, and Justus Andersson being the highest Avs goalie pick since Calvin Pickard. This is your high-end quality prospect depth. When you get NHL players out of these guys, this is more about extending your championship window than necessarily winning them. When you can consistently replenish your team with cheap ELC talent, it gives you that much more flexibility. There are pretty much 2 defining factors here. For Bowers, Kaut, and Timmins, the 3 players in the AHL already, they're essentially pro-ready. I believe all of them could probably drop into the NHL today in some capacity and be good to go. For the other 2, Barron and Andersson, it's about upside. Barron, the Avs' first-round pick of this year, we've seen projected as a top 4 defenseman. Andersson, obviously an incredible year in Europe last season and is projected as potentially a starting goaltender of the future. Moving on to Tier 3, this is where the Avs start to really have a glut of quality prospects. On the list, we have Sampo Ranta, Drew Helleson, Adam Werner, Sasha Mutala, Jean-Luc Foudy, Colby Ambrosio, Alex Bocage, and I actually forgot to put on Nikolai Kovalenko in this tier as well. All of these guys are players that I personally see a path to the NHL for. Now, likely all of them won't make that path, but I do believe it's there. In whatever league they're currently playing in, all of these players have showed an NHL skill. Ranta has the physical aspects, Helleson has the defense, Werner already played in the NHL. Him being down in the third tier is more about the questions about how high his ceiling really is. Mutala has destroyed the WHL on all aspects. Foudy, an NHL level skater. Colby Ambrosio, similar, though he's probably one of the closer ones, could be dropped down a tier. And Bocage absolutely has an NHL caliber shot. So you can see where all of these kids could make the NHL if they can round their games out or just push it to that next level. They just have to prove it and get there. Likely, all of the non-pro ones are going to earn ELC contracts from the Avs at some point. It's just about taking that next step. And as far as Kovalenko is concerned, he's kind of a unique case where I do think he's probably an NHL-ready player. You could probably make an argument for him being in Tier 2 even. But given that he's still in Russia and there's some question marks on how he gets over to North America and gets into the NHL, I did bump him down to Tier 3 and didn't even put him on the list. Whoops, my bad. Moving on to Tier 4, these are definitely guys that have something to prove in their current league. Those being Daniil Zaravalov, Trent Miner, Tyler Weiss, Ryder Rolston. I'm not going to say there's no chance on these guys, but in the league they're in, there's something they need to improve on. Zaravalov needs to stay healthy in the KHL and show a little bit more offensive production. Trent Miner, look, he's a goalie. I kind of threw him in Tier 4 because of that. You just never know. Goalies are voodoo. If he has a great season in the WHL, he'll earn himself a contract. Weiss kind of needs to put on some weight, kind of needs to show a little bit more goal-scoring ability. It's just where he's at. You kind of know what type of player he is. You just need to see more out of him. And then Ryder Rolston, a late-round pick from this year, has that new prospect shine on him a little bit. As he graduates up to the NCAA, we'll see what he shows. Compared to Tier 3, where you're hoping to get a couple NHLers out of that group, certainly at least one. If you get an NHLer out of Tier 4, you're feeling really good about your development and drafting process. Then we have Tier 5. This is kind of my wild card tier. You have a bunch of guys that were mostly taken with late-round picks, and it's not exactly clear how they get to the NHL, but they could always have a breakout season. That includes Nicky Lieberman, Nils Oman, Luka Burzan, Nate Klerman, Matt Steinberg, and Shamil Shmakov. A lot of question marks about these guys. You see players coming over from Europe, or still playing in Europe, depending on. Players trying to find their footing in whatever leagues they might be in, or trying to graduate to a higher level league in Burzan's case. So there's not a lot of clarity on these guys, but that's not to say they aren't talented players, and if they have a breakout season, all of a sudden they could quickly move up this pyramid. Finally, you have Tier 6, and I'll be honest, the players I put in Tier 6, I do not see a path for to the NHL at the end of the day. You'll notice all of these players got ELCs from the Avs and are playing in the Avs Pro system in some capacity. However, that does not mean that they have a clear path to the NHL. Now, there's multiple factors to that. Have they been troubled by the Avs development system? In some cases, yes. Have they just not been able to hack it at the pro game at the next level to push for an NHL job? In some cases, yes. In some cases, it's both of those things. But the way the math is adding up, it just doesn't seem possible for these guys to push for an NHL job. That isn't to say these guys are bums or anything like that. They'll likely go on to have very successful hockey careers, mostly in the minor leagues, I would imagine, but it's going to be tough for them to make the NHL. And even then, you never know. If someone just clicks, something gets figured out, and they just start destroying the minor leagues, they could still find their way to the NHL. I personally just don't see it happening. So there you have it, the Avs full prospect pyramid. I think there's a lot of talent here. Certainly the best the pyramid has looked since I started covering the team, and there's probably an argument that this is the best it's ever looked for the Avs, particularly when you get into tiers 2, 3, maybe even 4 there. They have a lot of talent. Now it's about converting it. That is the end of this prospect pyramid video. Thank you for watching. You know the drill. If you're not watching from DNVR.com, head over there and be sure to subscribe if you really like the content. Financial support is big for us. Or at very least, subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video, as that helps us a bunch as well. Oh, I almost forgot. Credit Steve Dangle for the idea of the prospect pyramid. As far as I know, he's the guy who came up with it, so he's awesome. And you know, he sold everybody else to use it, so I've been using it ever since he did. So yeah, credit where credit's due. I am Rudo, and feel free to put in the comments what I got wrong. No doubt someone will like some prospects more than I do or less than I do, and that conversation is always fun.